asleep in New York. I bet they're asleep all over America. Of all the gin joints in all the towns in all the world, she walks into mine.
Casablanca. For many, it is simply the greatest movie ever made, and most critics list it among their favorites. It's a film nearly flawless in every aspect of its execution, and the best work many involved in the production ever did. Famously, the script was not completed when production began, and yet it holds up as one of the best written movies by any standard. In a well-conceived story, the theme is explored by having characters represent different positions on the central question. By resolving their conflict, the so-called moral of the story becomes clear. Usually this is an affirmation of the protagonist's understanding of the theme at the story's end. So what is the theme of Casablanca, and how do the characters in the story relate to it? Ultimately, what is the message we're meant to take away? Casablanca, of course, is a thinly veiled call to war for the United States. America had declared war just over a year before the film's release, and the liberation of Casablanca in real life was imminent. Rick Blaine, with his refusal to involve himself in the affairs of others, represents isolationist America, who eventually comes to realize he cannot simply butt out of the conflict in Europe.
I was born in New York City, if that'll help you any.
I understand that you came here from Paris at the time of the occupation.
Well, there seems to be no secret about that.
Are you one of those people who cannot imagine the Germans and their beloved Paris?
It's not particularly my beloved Paris.
Can you imagine us in London?
When you get there, ask me.
Diplomatist.
By extension, audiences were invited to get behind the war effort and volunteer. The nations involved are variously represented by Major Strasser for Germany, Captain Renault for unoccupied but complicit France, and Victor Laszlo for the heroic resistance of occupied Europe.
If he gets a word in, it'll be a major Italian victory.
The Italian officer is comically ignored by all, and the Russian bartender is a harmless kook.
Boss, you've done a beautiful thing.
Well, you crazy Russian.
The case of Renault is something of a running joke. As a representative of unoccupied France, he is ostensibly free of obligation to serve the Nazis, yet serve them he does, and he is by far the most frankly immoral and reprehensible character in the film.
I have my orders.
Oh, I see. Gestapo spank.
My dear Ricky, you overestimate the influence of the Gestapo. I don't interfere with them, and they don't interfere with me. In Casablanca, I am master of my fate. I am
Major
captain...
Strasser is here, sir.
You were saying...
Excuse me.
Interestingly, Britain is not represented, as the film relies upon America's fundamental and nostalgic connection to France as a fellow revolutionary beacon of liberty to move the audience's sympathies. And this also plays to the idea that if the war is to be won, it can happen only as a result of American involvement.
Play La Marseillaise. Play it.
Rick, there's going to be some excitement here tonight. We're going to make an arrest in your cafe.
What, again?
Oh, this is no ordinary arrest. A murderer, no less. If you're thinking of warning him, don't put yourself out. He cannot possibly escape.
I'd stick my neck out for nobody.
A wise foreign policy.
But like America, Rick Blaine is reluctant to get involved. He sticks his neck out for no man, preferring to remain on the sidelines.
Who do you think will win the war?
I haven't the slightest idea.
Rick is completely neutral about everything, and that takes in the field of women, too.
Rick's neutrality is presented in opposition to Ugarte, who stands in for all the unscrupulous profiteers who assist refugees for a price.
But think of all those poor refugees who must rot in this place if I didn't help them. Well, that's not so bad. Through ways of my own, I provide them with exit visas.
For a price, Ugarte. For a price.
Excuse me.
Rick, by contrast, does not take advantage. He simply refuses to get involved. At least, no more so than his distaste for certain seedy characters will allow.
You dare not keep me out of here.
Your cash is good at the bar.
What? Do You know who I am.
I do. You're lucky the bar's open to you.
It is this viewpoint that will come to change through the events of the story, and as such the central issue of the film, its theme, is loyalty. Does one owe allegiance primarily to one's own interests and inclinations, or to the needs of one's nation in a time of conflict?
Do I have to hear again what a great man your husband is, what an important cause he's fighting for?
It was your cause, too. In your own way, you were fighting for the same thing.
I'm not fighting for anything anymore except myself. I'm the only cause I'm interested in.
As the film's protagonist, Rick's position regarding this question undergoes a complete reversal.
Nobody's going to be arrested, not for a while yet.
Have you taken leave of your senses?
I have. Sit down over there.
Put that gun down.
Louis, I wouldn't like to shoot you, but I will if you take one more step.
Under the circumstances, I will sit down.
When we meet Rick, he has all the qualities to make a hero, not the least of which is that he's played by Humphrey Bogart. He's a man of power and means in a city of refugees and vagrants. He has influence and money. When we meet him, he has the qualities to be a hero, but he isn't one. He's a man who sticks his neck out for no one.
Suppose you run your business and let me run mine.
As such, he's meant to remind American audiences that the U.S. did not directly engage in World War II until late in 1941, having left its allies to fall before the German advance.
My dear Rick, when will you realize that in this world today, isolationism is no longer a practical policy?
What changes his mind is witnessing what happens to those around him. Good people ruined by needless conflict, corruption, and the aggression of the Nazis.
Ricky, I'd advise you not to be too interested in what happens to Laszlo. If by any chance you were to help him to escape...
What makes you think I'd stick my neck out for Laszlo?
Because, one, you bet 10,000 francs he'd escape. Two, you got the letters of transit. Now, don't bother to deny it. And, well, you might do it simply because you don't like Strasser's looks. As a matter of fact, I don't like him either.
Well, they're all excellent reasons.
As the theme is loyalty, and the main question of the film is what perspective towards this idea is most correct, we will be shown characters major and minor, each of whom approaches it from a different perspective. They are all tested with regards to this question, and the story's moral becomes clear when the question is resolved. We observe whose approach perseveres and whose fails them. Usually in stories, as in this one, it is the protagonist whose viewpoint delivers us the resolution we are meant to accept. The story itself is somewhat complicated. Rick is the owner of a successful club in Casablanca, a city famous as a departure point for European refugees fleeing for Lisbon and then to America.
Perhaps tomorrow we'll be on the plane.
And also for a corrupt system of opportunists and criminals that fleece the desperate.
Be on guard. This place is full of vultures everywhere.
It's a place where most find their path coming to an end, but for a lucky few, it's a stepping stone to freedom and peace.
Waiter! Oh, how silly of me.
Oh, dear.
I left my wallet at the hotel.
Oh.
Rick, placed in the center of all this, is even-handed but neutral. He refuses to become involved or take sides, and is as inclined to discourage overt resistance activity as he is to displays of authority by Vichy or by the Nazis pulling the strings.
I don't like disturbances in my place. Either lay off politics or get out. Hey, you finish locking up, will you, Carl?
I will. Then I am going to the meeting
Now,
of...
don't tell me where you're going.
I won't.
Good night.
Good night, Mr. Rich.
You know, Rick, I have many a friend in Casablanca, but somehow, just because you despise me, you are the only one I trust. Will you keep these for me, please?
When Ugart leaves him in possession of the letters of transit, Rick finds himself an unwilling participant in a game of cat and mouse, between Major Strasser and Captain Renault on one side, and Victor Laszlo, an important and charming leader of the resistance, on the other.
Excuse me if I'm not gracious, but you see, Major Strasser, I'm a Czechoslovakian.
You were Czechoslovakian. Now you are a subject of the German Reich.
The letters are the film's rather unlikely MacGuffin, that plot device that catalyzes the action and the object which all the characters pursue. They represent a free pass. Any bearer of the letters may travel unrestricted, and no one may interfere.
Rick, there are many exit visas sold in this cafe, but we know that you've never sold one. That is the reason we permit you to remain open.
Oh, I thought it was because I let you win at roulette.
That is another reason. There is a man arrived in Casablanca on his way to America. He will offer a fortune to anyone who'll furnish him with an exit visa.
Well, what's his name?
Victor Laszlo.
And so, Rick has to decide whether to sell or give these letters to Laszlo in order to assist his escape from certain death at the hands of the Nazis. The twist is, Laszlo's wife is an old flame of Rick's, and not just any flame, but the love of his life.
Here's looking at you, kid. Well, I was wondering
Yes.
why I'm so lucky, why I should find you waiting for me to come along.
Why there is no other man in my life?
Uh-huh.
That's easy. There was. He's dead. It's the Gestapo. They say they expect to be in Paris tomorrow. They're telling us how to act when they come marching in. With the whole world crumbling, we pick this time to fall in love.
Yeah, it's pretty bad timing.
Be serious, darling. You are in danger, and you must leave Paris.
No. We must leave.
Yes, of course, we.
Now, the train from Marseille leaves at 5 o'clock. I'll pick you up at your hotel at 4:30.
No, not at my hotel. I have things to do in the city before I leave.
Where is she? Have you seen her?
No, Mr. Richard, I can't find her. She checked out of the hotel, but this note came just after you left. That's the last call, Mr. Richard. Do you hear me? Come on, Mr. Richard, let's get out of here. Come on, Mr. Richard, come on.
Rick cannot bear the thought of losing Ilsa a second time by sending her with Laszlo to the U.S. In her turn, Ilsa is still in love with Rick, her attachment to Laszlo being based more on admiration than affection.
She met a man about whom she had heard her whole life. A very great and courageous man. He opened up for her a whole beautiful world full of knowledge and thoughts and ideals. Everything she knew or ever became was because of him. And she looked up to him and worshipped him with the feeling she supposed was love.
And so Rick hatches a plan.
Yes, I have the letters. I intend using them myself. I'm leaving Casablanca on tonight's plane, the last plane.
Huh?
I'm taking a friend with me, one you'll appreciate.
What friend?
Ilsa Lund. That ought to put your mind to rest about my helping Laszlo escape.
It is as these events play out that characters Minor and Major encounter situations in which the question of loyalty arises.
Hey, excuse me, gentlemen. Your business is politics. Mine is running a saloon.
Good evening, Mr. Blaine.
Rick's first test is upon the arrest of Ugarte. The captured man turns desperately to Rick for help and receives none. Rick is steadfastly neutral, and he observes the consequence but is unmoved. His loyalty is only to himself.
Excellent, Captain.
When they come to get me, Rick, I hope you'll be more of a help.
I'd stick my neck out for nobody. I'm sorry there was a disturbance, folks, but it's all over now. Everything's all right. Just sit down and have a good time. Enjoy yourselves. All right, Sam?
How's Lady Luck treating you?
Oh, too bad. We'll find him over there.
Monsieur, you are a man. If someone loved you very much, so that your happiness was the only thing that she wanted in the world, and she did a bad thing to make certain of it, could you forgive her?
Nobody ever loved me that much.
We then see the young Bulgarian woman prepare to sacrifice her marriage vows in order to secure safe passage for herself and her husband from the unscrupulous Renault.
Oh, but if you knew what it means to us to leave Europe, to get to America. Oh, but if Jan should find out. He is such a boy. In many ways, I am so much older than he is.
She considers her husband's more romantic notions to be immature. She sees her bond to her husband as less crucial than their security, and this relationship reflects in small scale what has occurred between Ilsa and Rick.
Yvonne's gone over to the enemy.
Who knows? In her own way, she may constitute an entire second front.
Yvonne, the vulnerable French girl, having been rejected by Rick, mixes socially with the Germans. It's implied she is prostituting herself to them, despite her secret patriotism. She prefers even the appearance of affection over lofty notions of nationalist priority. At heart, though, she is a patriot, and I think it's fair to say that in this she's meant to represent the typical citizen of occupied France. Even Sam, Rick's closest friend and companion, has his loyalty tested when he's offered twice his pay to leave Rick in favor of the Blue Parrot Club. For him, there's no temptation in this.
Sam Ferrari wants you to work for him at the Blue Parrot.
Oh, I like it fine, yeah.
He'll double what I pay you.
Yeah, but I ain't got time to spend the money I make here.
Sorry.
Sing it, Sam.
You must remember this. A kiss is just a kiss. A sigh is just a sigh.
It's interesting to note that as Sam's presence facilitates the diegetic music, that which occurs as part of the story, he becomes unnecessary in the final act, and is as seemingly forgotten as King Lear's fool. Like the fool, he knows what's what, and is unlikely to have approved of Rick turning his back on love.
Good, have a drink.
No, not me, boss.
Don't have a drink.
Boss, let's get out of here.
No, sir. I'm waiting for a lady.
Please, boss, let's go. Ain't nothing but trouble for you here.
Coming back? I know she's coming back.
We'll take the car and drive all night. We'll get drunk. We'll go fishing and stay away until she's gone.
Shut up and go home, will you?
No, sir. I'm staying right here.
Tomorrow at 10 at the prefect's office.
We'll be there.
Good night.
Good night.
Then there's the more central characters to consider. Renault hovers over the narrative as its broadest observer, occasionally interfering to keep things on track. His loyalty is entirely malleable, as he likes to boast.
I'm making out the report now. We haven't quite decided whether he committed suicide or died trying to escape.
It is often he that puts others to the test, delighting in causing the collapse of their convictions.
Undoubtedly, their next step will be to the black market.
Excuse me, Captain. Another visa problem has come up.
Show her in.
He's a cynic, and it's only at the story's end, observing the heroics of Rick, that he comes around.
Major Strasser has been shot. Round up the usual suspects. Oui, mon capitaine.
Finally, he decides to join the resistance along with Rick, choosing to invest his loyalty at last.
Well, Rick, you're not only a sentimentalist, but you've become a patriot.
Maybe, but it seemed like a good time to start.
I think perhaps you're right.
Ilsa's loyalties come to their ultimate test when she confronts Rick over the letters of transit. She threatens to kill him if he doesn't hand them over.
If Laszlo and the cause mean so much to you, you won't stop at anything. All right, I'll make it easier for you. Go ahead and shoot. You'll be doing me a favor.
Here, her love for Rick is balanced against her loyalty to Laszlo and his cause. In the end, she succumbs and realizes that no obligation can outweigh their love for one another. As it turns out, Ilsa's decision to leave Rick in Paris was motivated by two things: a sense of loyal obligation to Laszlo and a desire to protect Rick, the man she loved.
The day you left Paris, if you knew what I went through, if you knew how much I loved you, how much I still love you.
In Ilsa, we see a constant and ongoing quandary, and the central question of the plot. It is in her decision to remain with Rick that our moral would normally be drawn. In the question of which loyalty has priority, love or duty, her answer is love.
Victor's looking at you, kid.
I wish I didn't love you so much.
I love you very much, my dear.
Yes. Yes, I know.
As for Laszlo, his obvious devotion to Ilsa consistently takes a back seat to his political loyalties. From the first time he insisted on going back to Czechoslovakia, abandoning her to the news of his capture and supposed death, to his defiance of Strasser and the knowledge that she would be endangered along with him.
Victor, please don't go to the underground meeting tonight.
I must. Besides, it isn't often that a man has a chance to display heroics before his wife.
Don't joke. After Major Strasser's warning tonight, I'm frightened.
Tell you the truth, I'm frightened too. So shall I remain here in our hotel room hiding? Or shall I carry on the best I can?
Whatever I'd say, you would carry on.
It's still a story without an ending. What about now?
Now, I don't know. I know that I'll never have the strength to leave you again.
And Laszlo?
Oh, you'll help him now, Richard, won't you? You'll see that he gets out.
And so the plan is for Rick to remain in Casablanca, and for Ilsa to abandon her obligation to Laszlo to join him. The story appears to be resolving in a manner that would affirm the notion that love conquers all, that lovers should live only for one another, and that grander issues can be left to resolve themselves.
The explanation is quite simple. Love, it seems, has triumphed over virtue.
Not so fast, Louis.
But Rick knows it's a dream. He knows you can't shut the world out. He's tried and failed terribly. He's seen the damage done to others in the face of similar crises.
You must know it's very important I get out of Casablanca. It's my privilege to be one of the leaders of a great movement. You know what I've been doing. You know what it means to the work, to the lives of thousands and thousands of people. That I'll be free to reach America and continue my work.
Victor Laszlo sees himself as belonging utterly to the resistance movement. As a popular and influential figure, he cannot be seen to be defeated by the enemy, and so he must flee the theater of conflict so that his voice can continue to be heard and rally support when and where it's needed most. Rick, on the other hand, is a man of action, inconsequential in the grand scheme, and he's the type that wades into conflict rather than flee it. He assumes the risk of almost certain eventual discovery and death, and leaves the care of Ilsa to a man deemed too important to be lost. In story terms, all of this makes perfect sense. It's meant to inspire American viewers to join the war effort. When Rick famously declares the start of a beautiful friendship with Renault, audiences understood that this was meant to declare a renewed kinship between the US and France, in the hopes that France would be liberated and join America in defeating the Germans.
I don't know what's right any longer. You have to think for both of us. For all of us.
All right. I will.
Ilsa's conviction is weak, and her moral is overridden as Rick reverses her decision unilaterally.
And the names are Mr. and Mrs. Victor Laszlo.
But why my name, Richard?
Because you're getting on that plane.
I don't understand. What about you?
She bids him to make the decisions for all of them, so it becomes a matter to be resolved by the man who represents America in the wartime dynamic. When push comes to shove, he sends Ilsa packing. He sacrifices their dream, and their love, to the supposedly greater concept of duty to country.
But I've got a job to do, too. Where I'm going, you can't follow. What I've got to do, you can't be any part of. Ilsa, I'm no good at being noble, but it doesn't take much to see that the problems of three little people don't amount to a hill of beans in this crazy world.
By deciding for Ilsa as well, he ensures her ongoing loyalty to Laszlo. Laszlo needs Ilsa, and the world needs Laszlo, Rick reasons.
Monsieur Blaine, I don't ask you to explain anything.
I'm going to anyway, because it may make a difference to you later on. You said you knew about Ilsa and me.
Yes.
But you didn't know she was at my place last night when you were. She came there for the letters of transit. Isn't that true, Ilsa?
Yes.
She tried everything to get them, and nothing worked. She did her best to convince me that she was still in love with me. That was all over long ago. For your sake, she pretended it wasn't, and I let her pretend.
I understand.
And personally, I find all of this very sickening. It's grotesque, really. The moral of the story, it turns out, is that duty to one's nation takes precedence over personal loyalty. that service to a cause supplants one's hopes and dreams, that one should fight in the war, abandoning those he loves and sacrificing even the most passionate romance in favor of a beautiful friendship, brotherhood with others in the cause. But I have to consider that the defiance of tyranny is better served by commitment to genuine love than by the taking up of arms. Don't get me wrong, I respect and admire the men who volunteered to fight against the Nazis. I consider them great heroes who should be honored and remembered always. But I admire even more those who find true love, a bond of devotion to another human being so strong that nothing can part them. Understand that Rick and Ilsa aren't just any couple. They're presented as one of the great romantic pairs. Romeo and Juliet, Antony and Cleopatra, Paris and Helen, and Ilsa and Rick. The moral is that even such a couple, such vaunted love, doesn't matter in the face of a terrible responsibility to fight in war. It's how the story had to end. The purpose of the movie was to motivate recruitment and remind audiences that they must set aside their loves and their lives to join the fight. And that's why, for me, Casablanca always leaves a sour taste. It's a great story and flawlessly executed, but somehow I just don't believe what it tells me. I don't believe that the problems of Rick and Ilsa don't amount to a hill of beans. I think they, and their love, matter.
The world will always welcome lovers as time goes by. Woman needs man, and man must have his mate that no one can deny. It's still the same old story, a fight for love and glory, a case of do or die.
You're not very subtle, but you are effective. I get the point.